ଆସନ୍ତାକାଲି ଯିବାର ଅଛି। So good afternoon, all the students present for this session, and welcome to the second block of the International Human Resource Management Practices. So my dear students, in our previous block one, through the different units, we have understood the journey of the organizations from domestic level to the international level. We have understood how these organizations pass through different phases in their journey of being a global organization. And we have also seen different sort of strategies adopted by these organizations in different phases of their journey. But if we do talk of the basic success factor of any organization in its process of internationalization, we cannot undermine the role of human resources in the process. The human resources are the most critical and most valuable resources which can bring a difference to the entire process and making the journey more effective. So we are going to deal with different aspects of the human resource management practices under this block 2. In the upcoming sessions, through the different units under this block 2, we will see the different sort of HR practices in international context. And today we are discussing the 5th unit of our entire journey. So let us have a basic understanding of the staffing requirements of the international assignments, or the staffing requirements of the organizations in its process of internationalization. Now, if we to talk of the staffing resources or staffing requirements, we are talking of this recruitment and selections. So as to say, the procurement of human resources in the process of internationalization. Now, we do understand this process of recruitment and selection as a process where we do search for potential candidates, offer them a job, and ensure that those potential candidates do contribute their best efforts to the organizational success. So the process of searching, reaching to those potential candidates, hiring them for the organization is what that we need to talk of. But whenever we are talking of this internationalization process, as if we have understood that this MNCs, multinational corporations or international organizations, do have their presence in multiple countries along with their presence or dominance over the parent country itself. So here we are dealing with the parent countries, we are dealing with the host country, we are dealing with the third countries. And whenever we are dealing with these three different boundaries, different territories, right? Can our process of hiring the manpower for the organizations should be same or it would be different? Whenever we do have this journey of finding out the best candidate for our purpose, Can we rely on the parent country nationals? Can we rely on the host country nationals? Can we rely on the third country nationals? What would be the appropriate strategy that we need to take into consideration whenever we are going for recruiting the best for the organization at international level? So the Unit 5, what it says is staffing for international assignments deals with all of those issues related to the human resource or acquiring the human resources for the successful completion of any organization journey towards this globalization process. So let us start it with some of the basic aspects of this process of internationalization. Now, we have understood that the success or failure of any organization depends on the human resources. Human resources do play a very vital, significant role in the process of achieving that competitive advantage. But as if we have understood earlier, there are differences in terms of domestic HR practices to the international HR practices. So when the concept remaining same, context changes, we need to talk of different strategies to deal with different sort of contexts in internationalization process. So whenever we are talking of international recruitment and selection, let us talk of some of the critical factors which these organizations need to take into account when it comes to internationalization process. Like success or failure of the organization in its journey towards globalization mostly depends on the top level managerial people who do take a significant role in establishing the organizations beyond the domestic territories. Or maybe the success or failure of the organization depends on the top level managerial people. So one of the key issues of this international recruitment is to identify this top managerial people at a very early stage of the organization. So as to say, the people who will be solely responsible for taking the organization to the next level. Do I have those kind of people? I need to identify them. Similarly, identifying all those critical success factors for the future international managers. Now, each and every internationalization process do have certain pros, at the same time do have certain cons also. We do talk of certain disadvantages also. Now, I need to identify what are the problems associated with the internationalization process. I can think of that. I can deal with that. I can handle that so that I will prepare my managers to take off any such kind of responsibilities in their international assignment. Not only that, I need to provide enough developmental opportunities to my international managers. It is to help them to make a career in an international level. Most of the most of the international managers do face a lot of challenges, and that is why they end up their international careers in the midway only. What we call it as the failure of this process of expatriation. So these expat failures are one of the reasons that lack the organizations step behind. We need to deal with that. We need to have those people who continuously contribute for the growth and development of the organization. That can be possible if I do take those developmental opportunities for them only. We need to talk of the loyalty, the commitment level of the individuals in their international career. But it should not happen that any such kind of international assignment should end up early or end up at the midway. We need to talk of an alignment between the business strategies with the strategic requirements of human resources, or maybe vice versa. As if we have understood that organizations do pass through different phases of their internationalization, like international organizations, multinational organizations, transnational organizations, and at the end they become the global organizations, right? And each of these different phases of the organization focuses on different strategies. Whether I should completely believe in the domestic culture, domestic policies, plans, rules, regulations, or I should take the subsidiary as an independent unit, completely relying on the resources available at the host country. Do I take the organization like having a strategy which is more or less common to a particular region? Do I take the organization irrespective of its like domestic territory or international boundaries as one and the same everywhere? So different approaches are there, and I need to have different sort of strategies for that. That is what I need to understand, right? And whenever I do talk of this multiple business units, right? So I do have only one goal. I need to talk of a global strategy. I need to adopt that strategy. But can I undermine the local requirements of the organization? May not. Right? So whether I should have this strategies focusing more on the local responsiveness, or I should have the strategies more on regional level, or I should think of a strategy which can be common for all the purposes, global strategy. So these are some of the things that we need to consider before moving for the requirement of the human resources. And based on that, we do say that any such international human resource management practices, whenever we do talk of recruitment and selection, that is based on four different relevant contexts that we need to take into consideration, right? The first context is you need to link the staffing plans of the subsidiaries with its evolution stage. At what stage of evolution the organization is there? As if I have said, whether this organization is at international level, whether the organization is at multinational level, whether the organization is at global level or a transnational level. So different approaches of the organization, different stages of the organization do require different sort of strategies to be adopted. So we need to understand that. However, in our previous units, we have a detailed discussion of the different sort of strategies that we need to talk of while dealing with this international, multinational, or transnational global organizations. Second, we need to think of the staffing orientations. Staffing orientations means what should be our approach whenever we are dealing with all those three categories of human resources which are available to the organization. I'm dealing with parent country nationals, I'm dealing with host country nationals, I'm dealing with third country nationals. Okay. So whether I should choose the parent country nationals and send them as the expatriates to deal with the business opportunities beyond the domestic territory, or I should completely rely on the host country nationals. Maybe whenever I'm going for a globalized approach, I may not, or this parent country nationals or the host country nationals may not be sufficient for me to base my requirements. So I may be dependent on the third country nationals. That is what I need to understand. So what are the staffing orientations of the organization? The third aspect that we need to take into consideration is the expatriates. Managing different aspects of the expatriates, right? And we need to talk of the female expatriates in specific, right? Which will be a part of this expatriate, right? So what are the problems faced by these expatriates and how do we need to come out with or overcome those kind of things? All of those things need to be discussed in detail, right? So as I said that, we need to first deal with the organization's strategy or the link has to be established between the business strategies with the organizational strategies, with the HR strategies. So we have understood these approaches taken by this multinational, international, transnational, global organizations. Let's talk of the different sort of staffing orientations that these organizations do have at different phases of their journey, right? And what sort of strategies that these organizations need to adopt when it comes to the staffing requirements or bridging the staffing requirements of the organization. So it is defined by this EPRG model, what it says, the ethnocentric, polycentric, regiocentric, and the geocentric model. We have understood that ethnocentric approach is the approach which is taken by the organizations at the very early stage of their internationalization process itself. Okay? So here the organizations here assumes that the home country is superior. The products, services, whichever has been successful in the home country, they do not have, or it is not required to have much changes in that. So organizations find similar sort of markets, and what they do is that they make a replication of their domestic business in the international territory without much changes in the organizations or in the policies, plans, rules, regulations, even in the products and services. The clear assumption is that the factors which make the organization successful at the domestic level should be the factors which will make the organization successful at the international level also. They assume that there are similarities between this domestic market to the host country market itself. So that is why whenever we are talking of this international organizations, fast phase of its journey towards globalization process, right? Here, they manage their international operations through the parent country nationals only. Here, the parent country nationals take the key positions in the international subsidiary. This strategy might be there because organization at its early phase of internationalization assumes a highest level of coordination to be there between the host country to the parent country itself, parent country headquarters. So if we do have parent country nationals taking up key positions in the subsidiary, in the host country itself, now the communication and the coordination between the parent country headquarters and the subsidiary will be better. The control mechanism over the subsidiary will be better. That is why they do rely on the parent country nationals who are deputed, as if we have understood, who are deputed from the parent country to the host country, means they are the expatriates. So there is a large number of expatriates who do take up these key positions in the subsidiaries of the organization. One of the logic which this parent country parent country headquarters may have is the lack of qualified host country nationals. So maybe the organization assumes that host country nationals may not be able to cope with the kind of strategies, policies, plans, or maybe the kind of technology, or maybe the kind of coping with the requirements of the organization. That is why they rely on these expatriates, parent country nationals. So these are some of the prime assumptions that these organizations do take in the ethnocentric approach, and that is why they depend more on parent country nationals than on host country nationals. So the parent country business is taken as the key business strategies, and the subsidiaries, foreign operations, are viewed as secondary, right? options. That is the key to the ethnocentric approach. When we move to the polycentric approach, it is just the opposite of ethnocentric approach. Polycentric approach says the key assumption is that host country do have their own uniqueness, maybe in terms of the culture, technology, political environment, social environment, or any such other factor we do talk of, right? Maybe the language, the attitude, values of the people, whatever it may be. So here in polycentric approach, the unit is or the subsidiary is taken as a separate unit altogether. And whenever this subsidiary is taken as a separate unit, it is assumed that the subsidiary should develop its own business strategies at its own end. The control of the parent headquarter to the subsidiary is minimum over here. Each and every subsidiary is taken as an independent unit, right? So here, maybe the control of the parent country over the subsidiary will be less. Maybe there will be a communication problem. Maybe there will be cultural differences. But when we deal with the host country market, people in the subsidiary itself can better be aware of the host country situations, local market conditions. They understand the local languages. They will understand the behavior of the people in the local market. They understand the values, attitude. So there is a greater probability that the organizations will have success at the host country level, being there at the being there as an independent unit itself. So that is why organizations at this polycentric level, polycentric approach, take the host country nationals as the way of bridging their requirement of human resources. Right? So maybe parent country managers will be there at the corporate headquarters, in the home country itself, but the entire unit is managed by the host country nationals. All of those things. Whenever we do come out with this regiocentric approach, organizations do view a particular region as to have its own unique characteristics. So there is a requirement of a particular set of strategies which will be applicable in a regional level. Maybe we can group that as, let's say, Southeast Asian economies, or we do talk of East Asian economies, we do talk of European economy, right? So here, as if like we have understood in this polycentric approach, the strategy should be specific to the host country. Strategy is specific to the country where we do have our subsidiary itself. But whenever I'm talking of this regiocentric approach, the strategy has to be taken for more than one countries or few or more countries which do have common regional characteristics. Right? So this regional approach is based on a geographical area. It's not confined to the particular country itself, right? So here the objective is the response to the local cultures, local traditions, right? So that is why whenever we talk of this staffing orientations for regiocentric approach, organizations do depend on host country nationals, because they are the people who do have a control and command over the local or the regional cultures, traditions, etc. However, whenever we talk of recruiting this host country nationals for regional approach, we need to follow certain criteria. Like we cannot completely rely on the host country itself, but as if they have to take care of a particular region. So the recruitment process should focus on the specific capability of the people. That means what we are talking of the specific level of skill, knowledge, abilities to deal with the regional areas. We are talking of the basic managerial abilities of the people, of those kind of candidates, right? Managerial abilities such as decision making skills, judgmental abilities, leadership abilities, team building abilities. All of those kind of managerial abilities should also be tasted before hiring the potential candidates for regio-centric approach. Right? We need to talk of evaluating them in terms of their international flexibility, adaptability. We need to evaluate them in terms of their language flexibility and adaptability. We need to evaluate them in terms of their endure, the perseverance when it comes to the time of difficulty itself. So selecting the people with these kind of characteristics may help the organization to come out with the regio-centric approach itself. And finally, whenever we talk of this geocentric approach, as if we have already understood that in geocentric approach, the organization takes the entire globe as a single marketplace, right? So here, the organizations need to strive to establish an integrated strategy which doesn't only focus on the global perspectives but giving a thrust on the local responsiveness. That is what is required. So this integrative strategy actually is a synthesis of ethnocentric and polycentric approach. We have to take all of those differences in the local market to the parent country. At the same time, we need to create a global strategy which will fulfill all the requirements of the local regional subsidiary, at the same time have its efficiency at the global level. That is what we need to understand, right? So whenever we are talking of this geocentric approach, in a true sense, we need global managers. I don't refer to the parent country nationals. I don't refer to the host country nationals. I want true global managers who can accommodate themselves with any kind of situation. So here, maybe this regiocentric and geocentric approach are the approaches which are adopted by these transnational and global organizations respectively, right? So here, the complete thrust is on the management of people with global efficiency. So we can depend on the third country nationals. No barriers. It may be parent country, it may be the host country, it may be the third country, whatever it may be, but I need true global managers. So their efficiency is what that is being evaluated over here. However, let us have an insight into the various advantages and disadvantages that we do have whenever we do have these parent country nationals and host country nationals or third country nationals. As if we have understood in our earlier classes, this is P. Morgan's model, where human resource activities deals with procurement, allocation, utilization, and we deal with host country, home country, and other countries. So we do have three options with us available, right? The parent country nationals, the host country nationals, and the third country nationals. So whenever we have to take a strategic decision whether we should go for the parent country nationals or host country nationals or third country nationals, right? So here, I need to understand what are the pros and cons of hiring parent country nationals. Similarly, what are the pros and cons of hiring host country nationals? So let us have a deeper analysis of all of those things, right? So whenever we talk of this parent country nationals itself, the basic advantage is that, as if we have understood, the control mechanism of the organization over its subsidiary will be better, right? But whenever we do talk of this parent country nationals, right, they are well versed with the parent country or the corporate headquarters policies, plans, rules, regulations, everything, right? So they can easily manage the organizations, the subsidiaries, and tuned them to the corporate headquarters itself. But this, makes this parent country nationals more specific as an option because they do have specific skills and experiences to deal with specific products and services itself. We assume that the process of expansion from domestic level to international level at its early phase, parent country nationals can bring a lot of advantages for the organizations itself. Right? Beyond that, sometimes we do talk of these parent country nationals as like they do take these international assignments as promotion in their career option itself. So giving them opportunities for growth and development in their international career, right? So these are the advantages that you do come out. But whenever I do talk of this disadvantages itself, parent country nationals have to face the differences in terms of the socio-cultural, economical, political, legal issues from the domestic level to the host country itself. Moreover, the challenge is to accommodate with the local languages of the host country. Right? So biggest disadvantage is that parent country nationals have to cope with a wide variety of diversities. That is why assigning international roles to the domestic country nationals requires a lot of investments to be made on that, particularly on training. Right? So these managers need to be trained, tuned up with the foreign countries' culture, languages, everything, so that they can have a better career prospectus over there. They can have a better success rate over there. Otherwise, chances are there these international assignments will end up in a failure. We are talking of these parent country nationals. Do take or do increase the administrative processes of the HR department, starting from their compensation packages to taxations to each and every aspect that has to be taken into consideration. Right? Moreover, as one of the basic selection criteria of the expatriates. Because here, unless and until we do take these cultural dimensions in a global scale, the result may not end up at a desired one. That is one. But again, we do think of one more important aspect, that is culture shock at its different phases of the journey of the employee in its internationalization process. These phases can be defined in terms of the 4 different factors, like honeymoon stage. We do say honeymoon stage is the first stage of any employee's international journey, right? Where the employee is fascinated, it's charmed by the differences in terms of the culture. So he's overwhelmed out of that. But gradually, as he spends time in the host country, he starts grabbing the negative aspects of the culture. And whenever we talk of these negative aspects of the culture, that is a phase where the employee develops some sort of anxiety that is the phase where employees do have culture shock. They may not adapt themselves. And that is why in this particular phase, anxiety phase or culture shock phase, most of the international assignments end up with failure. That is a phase where people cannot accommodate themselves anymore in the organizational journey process. So they return back, leaving the international assignment in between. That's the only reason why most of the international assignments do fail. But if the employee continues in the process of his career in the internationalization process, so he passes through the third phase, that is adjustment phase, right? The employee gets accustomed with the new way of life. Employees starts acquiring, more and more knowledge about the culture differences and start grabbing all those kind of aspects itself, right? So the employee gets himself adjusted in the process, and finally the individual integrates, right, himself with the new culture, and we call it as the acceptance phase. Sometimes we call it as the mastery stage, where the employee gets completely accommodated with the host country's culture itself. So unless and until these aspects are taken into consideration, most of the international assignments will end up in failure. That is what. So how to deal with that? What are the things that we need to take into consideration? How to make the people overcome these cultures of all of those things? We are going to discuss in our forthcoming sessions, right? But for today, let us understand what are the recent trends in the international recruitment process itself. Now, research says there are 5 such different sort of trends that the organizations do witness nowadays. First is, whenever we are going for internationalization process, we have to deal with this workforce diversity. We don't have a choice for that. It's a mandate, right? So whenever we do have workforce diversity, I need to ask myself a question: do I have this diversity policy of my organization? Nowadays, we do talk of DEIB policy: diversity, equity, inclusion, and belongingness policy, right? So if not that, but still, do I have a diversity policy? If not, then I need to think of it once again, because I don't have an option other than to go for people from different cultures altogether. Nowadays, we do talk of upshoring activities. As a first instance, I may think of expanding myself to international borders and do take care of everything by my own. But most of the organizations, they outsource their processes, maybe to consultancies operating at global level, maybe the advisory groups itself. Okay? So taking care of the whole thing at the individual level, at the organizational level, is a different thing. But when we outsource it to other consultancies or other firms itself, that will take a different sort of strategy. That is one. International recruitments do focus more on background checks. From domestic level, like whenever we do talk of, the basic process is written tests, group discussions, personal interviews, maybe some medical checkups, etc. But whenever we are going for internationalization process, beyond that, we need to talk of the families, involvement of the families in the process. So sometimes you need to interact with the family members for that. Increased background checks includes police verification. Increased background checks includes uh, the bankruptcy statements of the individual employee. All of those things increases the load of the HR department altogether. Right? We need to talk of the recruiting sources from where we'll get the manpower. Next slide, we'll talk of that, right? And the biggest challenge that we do have is nowadays we do talk of dual career couple. So, working couple. Can I choose both for my international assignment? If not, either of the spouse is being selected for any international assignment, do have a problem of accommodating the other spouse in the international assignment. So, depends on the kind of culture that we do belong to. Maybe in a paternalistic culture, the feminine counterpart has to adjust with the male counterpart itself, right? And if I do talk of a maternalistic culture, the masculinity or the male partner has to accommodate with the female counterpart. But whatever it may be, there may be problems for the organization, both. Right? I have to deal with that. That is what I need to understand. Right? So, understanding this, as I said, we need to identify these sources of recruitment. The recent survey says job posting websites do take 92%, companies' website do take 85%, employee referral programs do take 81%, recruiters from external agencies 59%, recruiters internal sources 50%, ads in local media gives 48% of effectiveness, companies intranet gives 47% of effectiveness, college and university recruitments takes 45%, temporary to permanent hiring takes 42%, ads in professional association medias 28%, email leads, discussion groups 21%, ads in national media 15%, blogs 3%. If you have to talk of the basic effectiveness of the different sources as it is represented in terms of its percentage, right? So the trends are completely changing. That is what we need to understand and make an application of these particular aspects in our recruitment process itself. Right? However, whenever we do talk of this internet-based recruitments, right? Maybe whenever we do talk of this internet-based recruitment, that may give us certain advantages like cost will be minimized. There will be broader source from which I can get the manpower itself. We can think of faster recruitment processes, all of those things, right? The volume recruitment can be facilitated by that, right? And the tailored information of the candidates can be taken into consideration. Update and modern organizational image can be portrayed through that. But international or recruiting through internet sources may reduce the quality of the manpower itself. That may be a time-consuming process in a sense. People outside the target group may also make an application, so they will undergo through the process of scrutinization. So that may kill some of the time. It's a recruitment is impersonal, but whereas we need to think of the local responsiveness itself, right? So maybe technical problems may be there for which there may not be a proper evaluation of the things, and all of those issues can be there itself, right? So here, what we need to understand is whenever we are dealing with these people in the organizations, right? We can think of hiring them on the basis of few such specific aspects, attributes, which are highly contextual in nature. It is not the same for all the kind of job positions that we are talking of, right? So having this, we need to come out with different sort of strategies by which we can get true global managers for our organizations. That's what we need to understand. Right? Let us talk of the next aspect. Like whenever we talk of this internationalization process, maybe starting phase expatriates, as if we have understood, expatriates means a particular person who temporarily resides in any country beyond his or her parent country, right? To pursue certain job or to pursue a career or something like that, right? So when parent country nationals are sent to subsidiaries, they are expatriates. Or any member of the subsidiary is sent to the parent country, they are expatriates. Or any such no reshuffling of human resources in terms of the subsidiaries will also be expatriate. So expatriate is a particular person who operates in a separate country altogether, having its temporary citizenship. But what we need to understand is the different aspects of choosing the expatriates itself.